Mankind's return to the moon. The silver surface of the moon gleamed under the soft glow of Earthlight, a beacon of hope for humanity's next big step. For decades, humans had dreamt of returning to the moon. Now, aboard the spacecraft Nova Dawn, that dream was about to come true. 3 astronauts sat silently in the cockpit, their helmets reflecting the sea of stars beyond the ship's windows. Commander Ethan Kane, a seasoned astronaut with piercing blue eyes and a calm demeanor, gripped the control panel. His voice broke the silence, calm yet filled with the weight of history. "We're approaching the landing zone. Prep for descent," he said. Beside him, Dr. Mia Torres, a brilliant astrophysicist known for her fiery passion for discovery, nodded. She double-checked the landing coordinates, her fingers gliding over the control panel. Lunar Base Alpha is just a few kilometers ahead. Sensors are picking up some unusual readings, though. Electromagnetic interference. Could be natural, but it's strange, she said, her brow furrowing. "Define strange, Doc," asked Lieutenant Jack Harper, the youngest of the crew and an ex-pilot with a knack for humor under pressure. Mia hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's almost like a signal, but it doesn't match anything we know." Jack chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. "Maybe the moon's been holding a secret rave party all this time." Ethan shot him a look. "Focus, Jack. This is serious." The Nova Dawn began its descent, the hum of its engines vibrating through the cabin. Outside, the moon's barren landscape stretched endlessly, a mix of craters and gray dust. As the spacecraft neared the surface, the crew's chatter faded, replaced by the tense rhythm of controlled breathing and the soft beeping of instruments. "Touchdown in 3, 2, 1, Ethan announced. The Nova Dawn landed with a soft thud, sending a cloud of moon dust into the airless void. A collective sigh of relief filled the cabin. "We're here," Ethan said, his voice tinged with awe. "Welcome back to the moon." The crew quickly prepared to disembark. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing the alien yet familiar lunar surface. Ethan was the first to step out, his boots leaving imprints on the powdery ground. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint static of their communication devices. "Everything's quiet," Jack said, scanning the horizon. "Too quiet." Mia adjusted her visor, her gaze fixed on the far-off hills. "Those readings I mentioned earlier, they're getting stronger, and they're coming from underground." "Underground," Ethan echoed, his voice sharp. "This area was mapped decades ago. There shouldn't be anything beneath us." Mia shrugged, her curiosity overpowering her caution. "That's what makes it interesting." The crew set up their equipment, their movements precise and practiced. Hours passed as they collected samples and conducted scans, but the strange signal persisted, growing stronger with every reading. Finally, Mia stopped, staring at her handheld scanner. "It's right below us," she said, pointing to the ground. "Something is buried here." Ethan frowned, his instincts telling him to proceed carefully. "Jack, get the drilling equipment. Let's see what we're dealing with." Within minutes, Jack set up a small drill, its mechanical arm boring into the moon's surface. The crew watched in tense silence as the drill dug deeper, inch by inch, until it hit something solid. "Wait," Jack said, stepping back. "That's not rock." Mia knelt down, brushing away the lunar dust. Her eyes widened as she revealed a smooth metallic surface. It shimmered faintly, reflecting the harsh light of their helmets. "This isn't natural," she whispered. This is a structure." Ethan's heart raced. "A structure? That's impossible. No one's been here since Apollo. And they definitely didn't build anything like this." Before they could process what they were seeing, the ground beneath them trembled. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through their suits. The metallic surface began to shift, seams appearing as if it were alive. Guys," Jack said, his voice unsteady. "I think we woke something up." The hum grew louder, and a section of the metallic surface slid open, revealing a dark passageway leading deep into the moon. A faint blue light flickered from within, casting eerie shadows across the crew's faces. Ethan activated his comms. "Mission Control, this is Nova Dawn. We've made contact with an unknown structure beneath the lunar surface, requesting immediate guidance." The reply crackled with static, barely intelligible. "Structure. Danger. Proceed. Caution." "Great," Jack muttered. "That's reassuring." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. They were trained for emergencies, but nothing in their manuals covered this. Still, his duty was clear. "We go in," he said, his voice firm. "But we stick together. No risks, no heroics." Mia hesitated, her scientific curiosity battling with her fear. "Do you think it's alien?" Ethan looked at the dark tunnel, the blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. "We're about to find out." As they stepped into the passageway, the hum grew softer, almost welcoming. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch, lined with faintly glowing patterns that seemed to shift as they moved. "This isn't just a structure," Maya said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a machine. A living machine." Ethan nodded, his grip tightening on his equipment. "Stay alert. We don't know what's waiting for us." The crew ventured deeper into the unknown, their footsteps echoing in the vast silence. Behind them, the hatch sealed shut, leaving the moon's surface as empty and desolate as before. But beneath the surface, something ancient had awakened, and it was waiting. The crew of Nova Dawn stood in silence, staring at the entrance that had appeared beneath the lunar soil. The dark passage seemed to breathe, its edges lined with faint blue lights that pulsed like the slow rhythm of a sleeping heart. Commander Ethan Kane's gloved hand hovered over the entrance, hesitant to take the first step. The air inside the tunnel shimmered with a strange heat signature that made no sense on the freezing lunar surface. "Commander," Dr. Miyatori said, her voice breaking the trance. "This passage, it's emitting energy. Heat. There's no rational explanation for this." Ethan turned his head slightly, his expression hidden behind the reflective visor of his helmet. "Yet here we are, standing at the entrance to something buried beneath the moon. We have to find out what's inside." Lieutenant Jack Harper's voice crackled over comms, a forced calmness in his tone. "I just want to point out that every horror movie starts like this. We find a creepy door, walk inside, and poof, we're alien snacks." Mia smirked faintly, then stayed behind. "Jack, I'm sure Command would love to explain why the youngest member of the mission let the discovery of the century pass him by." Jack sighed. "Fine, but if I see something with tentacles, I'm out." Ethan glanced back at the Earth, visible just above the horizon, a glowing blue and white sphere hanging in the blackness of space. "We stick together. No splitting up. We document everything." With that, he stepped forward into the tunnel. The inside of the passage was smoother than they expected. The walls weren't stone or metal, but something in between, like a composite material that seemed alive under the crew's fingertips. Faint, intricate symbols ran along the surface, pulsating softly. Maya traced them with her gloved fingers. "These markings," she whispered, "they're not random. They resemble constellations." "Human constellations?" Ethan asked. Mia hesitated. "Not exactly. They're familiar, but different, like someone took Earth's star maps and rearranged them, almost as if they evolved." Jack finished. The tunnel descended gradually, leading the crew deeper beneath the surface. The silence felt heavier the further they went. Jack glanced nervously at the walls. "You feel that?" he muttered. Ethan frowned. "Feel what?" Jack exhaled, his voice hushed. "The tunnel. It's humming, like it's breathing." Mia's eyes narrowed as she checked her scanner. "I'm detecting a low-frequency vibration. Nothing harmful, but it feels organic." Ethan pressed on, carefully observing their surroundings. "We've come this far. Let's keep moving." The path opened into a large circular chamber, the size of a small hangar. At its center stood a raised platform, surrounded by towering spires that stretched toward the ceiling like jagged black teeth. The faint glow of blue light rippled across the floor, illuminating strange symbols carved into the ground. "What is this place?" Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. Maya stepped forward cautiously, her scanner beeping erratically. "This isn't just a tunnel, it's a control room, or part of a machine." Jack shot her a skeptical glance. A machine? Built by who? Or what? Before Maya could respond, Ethan's voice cut in. "Look at this." He was kneeling by the platform, his gloved hands brushing away a thin layer of dust. Beneath it was a symbol, 3 interlocking circles. The design was strikingly familiar. "That's the insignia of the United Earth Space Command," Ethan said, his voice filled with disbelief. "But how?" Mia's heart pounded. That insignia wasn't designed until 2055. This base was never mentioned in any historical records. "Maybe it was classified," Jack suggested, though even he sounded doubtful. Mia shook her head. "No, if this structure predates our technology, that insignia shouldn't exist here. This place is older, much older." Ethan's comm crackled with static, causing the crew to freeze. "Did you hear that?" Jack said, his hand instinctively drifting toward his sidearm. Mia narrowed her eyes, adjusting her comms. It sounded like... She hesitated, unsure how to phrase it. Like a voice. Ethan slowly stood, his hand resting on the platform. As he did, the ground beneath them shuddered slightly. The spires around the room began to hum louder, and the blue light on the walls intensified. "Mia," Ethan began, his tone warning of caution. Before he could finish, a portion of the wall directly in front of them shifted, sliding apart with a low groan. Beyond it lay another tunnel, but this one was different. It wasn't empty. Inside were rows of cylindrical pods, each one large enough to hold a person. The glass was frosted over, obscuring whatever was inside. A faint mist coiled around the floor, creating an eerie atmosphere. Jack exhaled slowly. "I don't like this." Mia approached the nearest pod, her breath catching as she wiped the glass with her glove. She gasped softly. A human face stared back at her, pale, serene, and unmistakably alive. "They're human," Mia whispered. "Or at least, they were." Ethan's jaw tightened. What the hell is this place? Before anyone could answer, a single word flickered across the chamber's wall in glowing letters. The crew stepped back instinctively as they read it aloud. "Well, Suam." Jack's voice was strained. "Is it just me, or is that a little too polite for a secret alien base?" Ethan stared at the word, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. "This isn't an alien base, Jack. This is a human facility. And someone, or something, knew we were coming." The chamber's lights grew brighter as the pods began to hum softly. One of them hissed, the glass slowly rising. Maya took a step back. "Commander, I think one of them is waking up." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he tightened his grip on his equipment. "Stay ready. We're not alone anymore." The first pod fully opened, releasing a thin stream of mist. A figure slowly sat up inside, their eyes glowing faintly with the same blue light that lined the walls. Mia swallowed hard. What if they've been waiting for us? Ethan's gaze hardened. Then let's hope they're friendly. The figure stepped onto the chamber floor, locking eyes with the crew. In the vast silence of the moon base, the forgotten past had come alive again. The figure stood motionless in front of the crew, illuminated by the soft glow of the moon base's strange blue light. Their eyes, human in appearance but shimmering unnaturally, locked onto Ethan Kane with an unsettling calmness. The faint mist from the opened pod swirled around their feet, dissipating into the cold lunar air. Jack Harper instinctively took a step back, his heart racing. "Commander, that's not normal. No one survives in stasis for that long." Ethan held his ground, his breathing steady but shallow. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice amplified through the suit's external speakers. The figure blinked slowly, as if processing the question. Their pale skin reflected the light around them, and their short, dark hair clung to their forehead, damp from the pod's liquid suspension. After a long pause, the figure finally spoke. "I am Lieutenant Commander Elise Grant," the figure said softly. "Lunar Division, United Earth Space Command." Mia Torres stiffened, exchanging a sharp glance with Ethan. Impossible. The Lunar Division was disbanded nearly 150 years ago. They never conducted deep space operations. Jack's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they didn't freeze people in underground moon tombs either." Elise tilted her head slightly, the corners of her mouth twitching upward in the faintest ghost of a smile. "You think I'm lying?" she asked, her tone oddly gentle. Maya took a hesitant step forward. "If you really are Elise Grant, what year is it?" The figure's eyes flickered faintly. "The year is 2185. Jack exhaled sharply. "Well, that's about 200 years off." Ethan's mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. "Elise," he said carefully, "the year is 2387. You've been in that pod for over 2 centuries." For the first time, the calm facade on Elise's face cracked. Her gaze drifted toward the floor, and her breathing became uneven. 200 years, she whispered, more to herself than to the crew. "I wasn't supposed to sleep for that long." Mia stepped closer, concern etched on her face. "Why were you in stasis? What is this place?" Elise's expression hardened, and she straightened her posture. Her glowing eyes scanned the chamber with a familiarity that suggested she knew the facility well. "This base was part of Project Meridian," Elise explained, her voice regaining its strength. "A classified initiative launched to safeguard humanity from external threats." Ethan frowned. "External threats? You mean aliens?" Elise hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Not aliens, Commander. Something else. Something far closer to home." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I hate cryptic explanations. Care to elaborate?" Elise's gaze drifted toward the remaining rows of stasis pods. Some glowed faintly, while others remained dark and lifeless. "We were the first," she continued. "Volunteers selected to become the moon's guardians. Our mission was to operate this base, to prepare Earth for the inevitable." Mia crossed her arms, the scientist in her desperate for logic. "Prepare for what exactly?" Elise's eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was a flicker of fear beneath the stoic surface. "For the return," she said quietly. A cold silence settled over the chamber. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Return of what?" Elise stepped down from the platform, walking slowly toward the far end of the chamber. She gestured for them to follow. "The human race is far older than you know," she began, her voice echoing softly through the chamber. "Civilizations have risen and fallen, some reaching heights greater than modern Earth. Each time, something resets the cycle." Jack scoffed. "You're saying there have been other advanced human civilizations, and they just disappeared?" Elise nodded. "Yes, wiped clean by an external force. Project Meridian was designed to break that cycle, to ensure humanity could defend itself when the time came." Mia shook her head in disbelief. "This sounds like myth, not science." Elise stopped at a large circular console embedded into the wall. She pressed her hand against its surface, and a holographic display flickered to life. The projection revealed Earth, but the image was distorted. Strange markings and structures dotted the continents, unfamiliar even to Maya's trained eye. "This," Elise said, pointing to the map, "was Earth 12,000 years ago, one of the last civilizations to fall." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he examined the projection. "And who or what destroyed them?" Elise exhaled slowly. "We called them the Architects." Jack shifted uneasily. "Okay, that name doesn't sound friendly." "They weren't," Elise confirmed. "The Architects appear when humanity reaches a certain level of technological advancement. They see us as an anomaly that must be corrected. Mia's expression darkened. You're saying Earth is being monitored. Elise nodded grimly. And we've crossed the threshold once again. The architects will come. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He had faced many dangers in his career, but this was different. This wasn't just a threat to the mission. This was a threat to humanity's existence. Why now? He asked. If the architects have been watching, why haven't they intervened sooner? Elisa's eyes drifted back to the glowing blue walls of the chamber. Because, she said softly, this time, we woke them up. Jack groaned. Fantastic. We stepped on the intergalactic tripwire. Mia approached Ethan, lowering her voice. Commander, this could be the biggest discovery in human history. But if Elise is right, Earth is in danger. Ethan nodded, his mind made up. We report this to command immediately. They need to know what we found. As Ethan activated his comms, Elise's gaze remained fixed on the dark passageways beyond the chamber. I hope you're right, she said quietly. But if the architects have already noticed us, it may be too late. In the shadows beyond the reach of the chamber's light, something shifted. The moon base was waking up, and so were the forgotten secrets buried beneath its surface. Elise Grant's glowing eyes lingered on the distant shadows stretching beyond the chamber, her expression unreadable. The cold silence of the moon base wrapped around the crew, suffocating in its weight. Commander Ethan Kane could feel it, the sensation that something ancient was watching them from the dark. Jack Harper shifted uncomfortably, his gaze bouncing between the stasis pods. So, when you say external threats, Elise, how external are we talking? Elise's gaze remained fixed on the holographic map projected on the wall, which displayed long-forgotten civilizations now buried under the sands of time. Her voice was steady but hollow. The architects are not alien, not in the way you'd imagine. They are something closer, something crafted. Maya Torres, her scientific mind struggling to find rationality, frowned deeply. Crafted. By who? Humanity. Elise nodded slowly. In part, the architects are machines, created by an ancient branch of humanity that rose long before recorded history. Their mission was simple: preserve balance by resetting the cycle of civilization whenever humanity grew too advanced. Jack laughed nervously. Let me get this straight. You're saying we made our own doomsday robots? That's classic human behavior right there. Ethan stepped closer to Elise, his voice low and serious. If the architects have been around for millennia, why haven't we heard of them before? Elise turned to face him, her glowing eyes narrowing. Because every time they return, they erase everything. Technology, history, people. The survivors of each reset are left to rebuild from the ashes with no knowledge of what came before. Mia crossed her arms, frustration creeping into her voice. And why haven't we seen signs of these cycles on Earth? Ancient ruins, advanced technology buried deep underground. There's no hard evidence. Elise approached the nearest pod, her hand trailing across its glassy surface. That's because Earth is not the only battlefield. The architects don't just cleanse the planet. They remove traces of technology from beyond Earth, from the Moon, Mars, and every other outpost humanity established during those cycles. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're saying this moon base survived by hiding from them? Elise nodded. Project Meridian was humanity's first attempt to outwit the architects. We built this base to house a small force, guardians who would awaken during the next cycle to warn and protect Earth. But something went wrong. I was supposed to wake up 50 years ago, not 200. Jack exhaled slowly, taking in her words. So, what you're telling us is, we're 2 centuries late to the fight. Before Elise could respond, the chamber's lights flickered sharply. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the floor, growing louder with each pulse. Ethan's comm crackled, static washing over his earpiece. Commander, Maya said urgently, checking her scanner. I'm picking up movement. 30 meters beyond the chamber. Something's waking up. Elisa's expression hardened. The architect's probes. They send scouts ahead of their arrival. They must have detected our activity. Jack's face paled. Probes. As in hostile probes. Armed. Elise confirmed. And they won't stop until this base is silenced. Ethan took immediate control of the situation. Mia, Jack, arm up. Defensive formation. Elise, can this base still defend itself? Elisa's gaze drifted toward the control console at the center of the chamber. The defense grid is offline. The base has been dormant for too long. But there's another way. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. Elisa's fingers danced across the holographic display, summoning a blueprint of the entire moon base. Deep below their feet, a reactor chamber glowed faintly on the map. The core, Elise said. It's more than just a power source. It's a neural weapon, one designed to disrupt the signal controlling the probes. If I can activate it, we can disable them before they breach the chamber. Jack raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. The reactor's in the scariest, darkest part of this place. Elise didn't deny it. The lower levels, and I'll need to go alone. Ethan stepped forward, shaking his head. No chance. If these probes are as dangerous as you say, you're not going alone. Elise's glowing eyes met his. I appreciate the concern, Commander, but I'm the only one who knows how to operate the core. Mia cut in. You can guide us. We've got engineers. We can handle it. Elise studied them for a long moment before nodding. All right, but time is short. If we fail, the architects will send more than probes. The descent into the lower levels of the moon base felt like stepping into another world. The upper chambers, while strange, still resembled human engineering. But the lower levels, they were different. The walls shimmered with crystalline growths, and the air thrummed with an unnatural hum. This place is alive, Jack muttered, his voice echoing in the dim corridor. Elise walked ahead of them, her posture rigid. The reactor was designed to merge with lunar materials. Over time, the base began to evolve, adapting to its environment. It's partially organic now. Mia's scanner beeped wildly. Organic technology. This is decades ahead of what we have on Earth. Why hasn't anyone replicated this? Because no one knows it exists, Elise replied, and we intended to keep it that way. As they neared the reactor chamber, the corridor ahead of them twisted into strange, jagged shapes, almost like the base was resisting their passage. Ethan slowed his steps. Is this normal? He asked. Elise frowned. No, the base is reacting to the probes. They're interfering with its neural pathways. A sudden burst of light flared at the end of the corridor, followed by a deep mechanical groan. Shadows shifted, and the unmistakable silhouette of a tall, spindly machine emerged, its limbs unfolding like a spider's. Contact! Ethan shouted. Jack raised his weapon. I really hate being right all the time. The probe's body pulsed with sharp blue energy, and with a jolt, it lunged forward. Ethan fired the first shot, striking the machine's central core. Sparks flew, but the probe continued its charge. Elise, Ethan barked. Get to the reactor. Elise didn't hesitate. As Ethan and Jack held the line, Elise and Mia sprinted toward the reactor chamber. The door hissed open, revealing a massive crystalline structure pulsing with light. Mia stared in awe. That's the core. Elise approached the console. Yes, and it's the only thing that can save us now. As the probe advanced, Elise activated the reactor, and the chamber erupted with light. The probe's limbs twitched violently, and with a final burst of energy, it collapsed to the ground. In the silence that followed, Elise's voice echoed through the chamber. They know we're here now. The real battle is just beginning. The dead probe lay sprawled across the metallic floor, its lifeless limbs frozen in mid-lunge. Sparks flickered from the ruptured core, sending faint trails of smoke into the air. The eerie glow of the moon base dimmed once more, leaving the crew standing in the silence that followed the battle. Ethan Kane lowered his weapon slowly, his heart still hammering against his chest. Jack Harper nudged the shattered remains of the probe with his boot, watching as a few loose components tumbled out. "Well," Jack muttered, "that wasn't the welcome party I was hoping for." Mia Torres knelt beside the broken machine, scanning its remains with her handheld device. The readings flickered erratically, as if the probe was still trying to communicate. "This thing wasn't just hostile," Maya said, her brow furrowed. "It was broadcasting something. A signal." Elise Grant stood apart from the group, staring intently at the shattered machine. The faint blue glow in her eyes flickered like distant lightning. "The signal wasn't coming from the probe," she said quietly. "It was using the probe to amplify it." Ethan straightened, his instincts kicking in. Amplify it to where? Elisa's gaze drifted upward toward the reinforced ceiling of the moon base, as if she could see through the layers of rock and metal to the vast space beyond. "Earth." Jack's head snapped toward her. "Hold on, you're saying this thing was calling the architects?" Elise nodded gravely. "Yes, and that call might already be answered." Ethan's jaw tightened. "How long do we have before they arrive?" Elise hesitated, the faintest shadow of uncertainty crossing her face. "I don't know. But if this probe breached the base's outer perimeter, then the architects are closer than we thought." Mia rose to her feet, crossing her arms tightly. "We need to warn Earth. Now." Ethan activated his comms, switching to the secure channel that linked them to mission control. Static greeted him. Thick, heavy static that seemed to stretch endlessly. "Mission control, this is Nova Dawn. We have encountered a critical situation. Requesting immediate communication." The static deepened, crackling with an unsettling undertone. Ethan exchanged a glance with Mia. "Mission control, respond." Silence. Jack shifted uneasily. "Yeah, I don't like that." Mia checked her systems. "It's not us. Comms are operational." Elise stepped forward. "It's them." Ethan frowned. "You mean the architects?" Elise nodded. "They've already begun disrupting Earth's communications network. This is what they do. Isolate. Divide. And then they strike." Jack finished grimly. Ethan glanced at the probe once more. "We can't just sit here. If Earth doesn't know what's coming, they won't stand a chance." Mia's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "There might be another way." She gestured toward the central console Elise had activated during the battle. "This base is a relay station, right? If the architects used the probe to send a signal, why can't we use the same system to send our own?" Elise's expression softened with intrigue. "You want to use the base's core to override their signal?" Mia nodded. "Exactly. If we can hijack the transmission, we can send a warning straight to Earth." Jack whistled softly. "That's bold. I like it." Ethan's mind raced, calculating the risks. How long would it take to realign the base's systems? Elise approached the central console, her hands moving fluidly over the holographic controls. "If the core is stable, 10 minutes. But there's a catch." Jack laughed nervously. "There's always a catch." Elise's glowing eyes met his. "If we send that signal, the architects will trace it back here immediately." The weight of her words settled heavily over the room. Ethan's voice was firm. "We don't have a choice. Earth comes first. If they know what's coming, they can prepare." Elise hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Then let's begin." The chamber buzzed with energy as the core roared to life, bathing the room in an ethereal blue light. Elise's hands moved with practiced ease over the console, her connection to the base evident in every gesture. Jack paced nervously near the chamber entrance, weapon drawn. "I've got a bad feeling about this," he muttered. "Feels like we're painting a giant target on our backs." Mia glanced up from the diagnostics panel. "We already are, Jack. Might as well make it count." Ethan stood beside Elise, monitoring the rising energy levels. The base thrummed with power, and the soft vibrations beneath his feet grew stronger. Core output at 75%. Elise announced. Almost there. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared through the chamber. The lights flickered as the holographic map zoomed out, revealing multiple red blips moving across the lunar surface. Ethan's heart sank. What is that? Elise's eyes narrowed, the glow intensifying. They're here. Jack spun toward the entrance, raising his weapon. Probes. No, Elise said grimly. Not probes. Something worse. As if to confirm her words, a deafening metallic groan echoed through the chamber. The main doors leading to the base's upper levels began to quake, dents forming as something pounded relentlessly from the other side. Ethan activated his comm. Jack, hold the entrance. Mia, stay by Elise. We need that signal sent now. Jack planted himself at the threshold, weapon primed. I was really hoping for another 5 minutes of peace. The doors buckled under the pressure, and with a final shriek of metal, they tore open. Tall, slender machines stepped through the breach, 3 of them, each standing nearly 8 feet tall. Their bodies were smooth, seamless, and unnervingly human-like, save for the glowing white lights that pulsated beneath their dark exteriors. Elise, Jack growled. I know, Elise said, her voice sharp. Hold them off. Ethan raised his weapon, firing the first shot. The energy blast struck one of the machines, but it barely staggered, its gaze shifting slowly toward him. Ethan, Mia called, her eyes locked on the console. The core is reaching full capacity. We're almost there. Jack unleashed a volley of shots, but the machines pressed forward, unfazed. They're not slowing down, Commander. Elise's voice rang through the chamber. 1 minute. The lead machine's arm transformed, shifting into a sleek, blade-like shape that crackled with energy. It lunged forward, closing the distance between itself and Ethan with frightening speed. Ethan barely sidestepped the attack, feeling the air hum as the blade passed inches from his suit. Jack tackled the second machine, grappling to hold it back. Elise, Ethan barked. Sending signal. Now. Elise slammed her hand onto the console, and a pulse of brilliant light erupted from the core. The machines froze. The light expanded outward, washing over them like a wave. And then, as suddenly as they arrived, the machines collapsed into heaps of inert metal. Ethan exhaled deeply, lowering his weapon. Elise straightened, her eyes locked on the console. Earth has the signal. Mia's voice was quiet but hopeful. Do you think they'll believe us? Ethan stared at the lifeless machines. They will now. The silence that followed the signal's transmission felt unnatural, as if the base itself was holding its breath. The collapsed machines lay like discarded mannequins, their sleek black surfaces reflecting the cold lunar light that filtered through the chamber. Ethan Kane's grip tightened around his weapon, his knuckles white beneath his gloves. They stopped, Jack Harper muttered, cautiously nudging the nearest machine with his boot. Just like that. Maya Torres glanced toward Elise Grant, who stood motionless at the central console, the blue glow from the core reflecting faintly in her eyes. Is it over? Maya asked, her voice hesitant, almost afraid of the answer. Elise didn't look up. No, she said softly. This was just the beginning. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Explain. Elise turned to face the crew, her gaze heavy with the weight of knowledge that stretched back centuries. The machines you fought were vanguard units, designed to breach, assess, and neutralize. Their collapse means the architects are responding. Jack scowled. Responding? To what? We sent a signal to warn Earth, not invite more of these things. Elise stepped closer to the inert machines, crouching beside one of them. She placed her hand on its chest, feeling the faint residual heat of its internal systems. The signal we sent wasn't just a warning, she said. It was a challenge. Mia's expression hardened. You didn't mention that part. Ethan's jaw clenched. What kind of challenge? Elise rose slowly, locking eyes with him. One they cannot ignore. The architects don't tolerate resistance. The very act of sending that signal was a declaration that humanity refuses to be reset. Jack's laugh was humorless. Great, so we poked the ancient moon gods, and now they're on their way. Elisa's face remained solemn. Yes, and they will come in force. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. How long do we have? Elise turned to the central console, tapping a series of symbols. The holographic display flickered, zooming out to reveal a radar-like projection of the moon's surface. Several red dots appeared, scattered across the grid. Then, one by one, more emerged, until the map was littered with them. Mia's heart sank. That's a fleet. Jack's eyes widened. Please tell me that's some kind of glitch. Elisa's expression darkened. No glitch. The architects have mobilized. Their fleet is entering lunar orbit. Ethan exhaled slowly. His years of military experience screamed at him to retreat, to regroup, but there was nowhere to run. They were alone, trapped beneath the moon's surface with limited resources and an ancient enemy descending upon them. How do we fight them? Ethan asked, cutting through the rising tension. Elise met his gaze with quiet resolve. This base wasn't just built to house personnel. It was designed as a weapon. The core you activated isn't just a signal amplifier. It powers the base's defense grid. Jack's eyebrows lifted. Defense grid? You mean this place has guns? Elise nodded. Far more than that. If fully activated, this base can generate an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable the architect fleet. Mia's eyes narrowed with concern. You said if fully activated. What's the catch? Elise hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the far end of the chamber, where a sealed vault door loomed. The primary weapon systems are stored in the vault below. The problem is, they've been dormant for 200 years. We need to manually reactivate them. Jack groaned. Let me guess. Something horrifying is probably guarding that vault. Elisa's lips thinned. The architects anticipated sabotage. They left behind sentinels, autonomous machines programmed to eliminate intruders. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. Then we'll deal with them. Lead the way. The vault door stood like an ancient monument, its surface adorned with strange carvings that pulsed faintly beneath the crew's lights. Elise approached the control panel, brushing away a layer of dust. This door hasn't been opened since the facility was sealed, she murmured. The sentinels will still be active inside. Ethan gestured toward Jack and Mia. Weapons hot. If anything moves, shoot first. Jack smirked. You don't have to tell me twice. With a hiss of depressurization, the vault door slid open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with dark metal. The air inside was colder, untouched by time. The faint glow of blue emergency lights illuminated the path ahead. As they stepped inside, Ethan's instincts flared. The stillness felt wrong, as if the very walls were watching them. Elise, he said quietly, where are the sentinels? Elise's eyes scanned the corridor. They should be stationed along the perimeter. But a sharp metallic scraping echoed from the shadows ahead, cutting her off. Mia's grip on her weapon tightened. There's your answer. From the darkness emerged a figure, taller and more heavily armored than the probes they had faced earlier. Its limbs were sleek but reinforced, and its face was featureless save for a glowing triangular visor that pulsed rhythmically. Jack inhaled sharply. Oh, that's not friendly. The sentinel moved with terrifying precision, its steps soundless despite its size. It carried no weapon, but the faint hum of energy coursing through its body suggested it didn't need one. Ethan raised his rifle. Engage. Jack fired first, his energy blast striking the sentinel's chest. The machine barely flinched. In a fluid motion, it lunged forward, its arm transforming into a curved blade aimed directly at Jack. Ethan tackled Jack out of the way, the blade slicing through the air inches above them. Mia opened fire, targeting the joints in the sentinel's legs. Sparks erupted, but the machine advanced undeterred. Elise, Ethan barked. Any ideas? Elise knelt by a secondary console embedded in the wall, working swiftly. There's a security override. I just need a few more seconds. We don't have a few more seconds, Jack yelled, rolling to his feet and firing point-blank at the machine's visor. The blast struck true, shattering the Sentinel's head with a burst of sparks. The machine staggered before collapsing to the ground in a heap of broken metal. Mia exhaled heavily. That was too close. Elise's console beeped. Vault systems are unlocked. The defenses are coming online. The floor beneath them trembled as hidden compartments along the walls slid open. Rows of dormant cannons and railguns emerged, each one glowing faintly with latent energy. Jack's eyes widened in awe. Okay, now that's more like it. Elise stepped back from the console, her expression resolute. This base is ready to fight. Ethan glanced toward the holographic map, where the red blips representing the Architect fleet crept ever closer. Let's make sure Earth knows we're not going down without a fight. The moon trembled beneath their feet as the ancient defense grid roared to life. The vaulted chamber pulsed with power, sending electric currents surging through the walls like veins awakening after centuries of dormancy. Rows of sleek cannons, missile bays, and railguns slid from their hidden compartments, their targeting systems locking onto the distant red blips hovering in lunar orbit, blips representing the incoming Architect fleet. Commander Ethan Kane stood at the center of the control room, his gaze fixed on the holographic display hovering above the console. The fleet was closing in. There were at least 20 ships, their triangular silhouettes gliding like silent predators across the dark side of the moon. Jack Harper, weapon slung over his shoulder, paced nervously by the entrance. I counted on a lot of things when I signed up for this mission, he muttered. Moon spiders, maybe. Space radiation, sure. But alien extinction machines. Didn't see that in the recruitment brochure. Mia Torres shot him a glance. Technically, they're not aliens. They're ancient human tech. Jack smirked without humor. Oh, right. Because that makes it better. Elise Grant stood by Ethan's side. Her glowing eyes narrowed as she studied the incoming fleet. This isn't the full force of the Architects, she said quietly. They're testing us. A vanguard meant to assess how much of this base is operational. Ethan's fingers hovered over the console, ready to engage the defensive grid. Let them test us, he replied. They'll get their answers soon enough. Elise turned her head toward him, the faintest trace of a smile on her lips. You don't fully understand what you're unleashing, Commander. This base was not just designed to defend. It was designed to win. Jack raised an eyebrow. I like the sound of that. Mia stepped forward, her voice more cautious. Winning is great, but what's the cost? Elise's gaze drifted toward the central reactor chamber, where the base's core pulsed like a living heart. This base was built with hybrid technology, part organic, part synthetic. When the weapons activate at full capacity, the base will adapt, and so will we. Ethan stiffened. Adapt how? Elise met his gaze, the blue glow in her eyes intensifying. The base synchronizes with its defenders. It enhances them, mentally and physically. It's the only way to control weapons powerful enough to repel the Architects. Jack frowned. Hold up. Are you saying this place is going to turn us into what? Cyborg moon warriors? Elise's expression remained unreadable. Something like that. Mia exhaled slowly. What happens if we don't synchronize? Elise glanced at the display. The red blips were now within firing range. Then we lose. Ethan's hand hovered over the activation sequence. He glanced at his crew. Maya's eyes filled with cautious determination. Jack's nervous energy barely concealed beneath his smirk, and Elise, the woman out of time, ready to finish what she started centuries ago. We came here to ensure humanity's future, Ethan said at last. If that means becoming something more to survive, then so be it. Mia nodded, and even Jack gave a reluctant shrug. Moon cyborg it is, he muttered. Ethan pressed the console. A surge of energy erupted from the core, washing over the entire chamber in blinding white light. Ethan felt it first, a sharp electric current that burned through his veins and spread through every nerve ending. His vision blurred, and for a brief moment, he saw something impossible. Stars. Millions of them, not from the outside, but from within, as if the universe itself had been imprinted into his mind. The sensation faded as quickly as it came. Ethan staggered but caught himself against the console. His breathing was heavier, but he felt stronger, faster. The base's systems now responded to his thoughts, as if the barrier between human and machine had dissolved. Mia straightened, blinking rapidly. I can hear it. The defense grid. It's like a part of me knows where every turret is aimed. Jack flexed his fingers, staring at his palm. I don't feel different, but I definitely don't hate this. Elise opened her eyes, glowing brighter than before. The synchronization is complete. The base will respond to your commands now. The fleet won't stand a chance. Ethan looked toward the map. The first wave of Architect ships had entered firing range. Let's test this theory, he said calmly. Fire at will. The moon's surface erupted in light. Automated railguns locked onto the Architect ships with pinpoint precision, unleashing a storm of kinetic rounds that tore through the silent vacuum. Missiles launched from hidden silos, spiraling upward in controlled arcs before detonating in bright bursts of energy. Ethan could feel every turret, every cannon, as if they were extensions of his own body. Through the synchronization, he guided the defenses with fluidity no human hand could match. The first Architect vessel broke apart under the relentless barrage, its pieces scattering like debris across the lunar plain. A second ship twisted violently, as a railgun round punched clean through its core. But the Architects weren't defenseless. The remaining ships shifted in formation, returning fire with beams of energy that sliced through the blackness. Ethan raised his hand instinctively, and a series of energy shields flickered to life around the base, absorbing the blasts with a low hum. Shields holding, Maya reported, though her voice trembled slightly. But they're learning, adapting. Elise's gaze was locked on the battle. They always do. Jack grinned. Then we'll just have to adapt faster. The battle raged for what felt like hours, though time seemed distorted by the synchronization. One by one, the Architect ships fell, their sleek forms crumbling beneath the onslaught. By the time the last ship detonated in a final brilliant flash, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Ethan exhaled, allowing the synchronization to fade. His body ached, but his mind felt sharper than ever. Mia leaned against the console, breathing hard. Did we win? Elise's expression was calm but distant. For now. Jack chuckled, though it carried little humor. So, when do the reinforcements show up? Ethan stared at the holographic map. The red blips were gone. But somewhere, out in the vast reaches of space, he knew more were coming. Elise stepped forward, her glowing eyes softening. We've given Earth a fighting chance. That's more than anyone has in centuries. Mia straightened, brushing the dust from her suit. So, what now? Ethan's gaze shifted toward Earth, hanging in the sky like a beacon. Now, he repeated softly. His eyes narrowed. Now we get ready for whatever comes next.